those that don't know, can you break that down a little bit so they know what we're talking about?
So Dr. David Buss, who I think is the most important psychologist in the world.
He's an evolutionary psychologist.
He's an evolutionary psychologist. So he has a PhD from Harvard. He taught at Berkeley for a while. He is currently the head of the Buss Labs at the University of Texas at Austin. Hook 'em horns. I'm a Longhorn. Dr. Buss and I, we've corresponded a few times. He's been on my podcast. I've read every single one of his books, and I think he gets it right more than anyone else. And also, I think evolutionary psychology is the most underrated player in the league. It's the guy nobody knows about. It's the Pablo Bancaro of the fucking NBA. Nobody knows who he is, but the guy's fucking awesome. It's like that kind of shit. So he's been teaching this stuff since the 1970s. And one of the things that was controversial is that a lot of times when he does these studies, a lot of things that humans believe to be cultural, turns out they aren't cultural. He does this 37 culture study in 1989. He does several versions of it, but the culture basically the 37 culture study just completely disproves that beauty is cultural. It's not. Beauty, they look at beauty, the signs of beauty in all these 37 cultures that have nothing to do with each other, and they're the same signs of beauty from men to women. In all 37 cultures, women are more interested in a man's ability to procure resources.
I actually learned that in social psychology.
Yeah.
For women, they look at the triangle, men look at symmetry and hip to waist ratio. So I actually agree with a lot of his points. But when he brought up the dual mating strategy, and I thought that was really interesting because it actually kind of we differed on that, I think. And so when he changed his mind on that.
Yeah, so it wasn't him. I believe it was Trivers. I can't remember. There's somebody that study.
There was a female psychologist that had done a study that looked at these things long term.
Yeah, it may have been Lita Cosmides. I forgot who it was, but you're right. So what happened was the strategy was, why is it that women would cheat?
Exactly.
And so what they would look at, they would say, well, she would marry the accountant while secretly sleeping with the bartender, and that was the idea.
Because the evolutionary, the Chad would be more genetically she would want to mate with this guy, but she wants the rich guy to fund her.
Yes. Okay. So the idea with the mate switching strategy is that the proclivities are still there, but she doesn't act on them. So basically, the idea is it doesn't make any sense for her to fall in love with the. One of the things they found is that when women cheat in a relationship, 83% of the time they fall in love with their affair partner. Well, that doesn't make sense if their affair partner is a bartender, right? Does that make sense? That's terrible. From her survivalistic characteristics, for her to go down several levels as far as income to leave the accountant boyfriend to be with the bartender made no sense. So from Dr. Buss's standpoint, he started looking for these different things and it's a mate switching strategy. And so here were the reasons why he came up with the study. Number one, when women cheated in a relationship, 78% of the time they reported lower satisfaction in the marriage. When men cheated in a relationship, it was zero. It was the same.
Yeah. So, and we actually agree on that. Yes, we do agree on that. But I think you have to kind of take a look at the reason why women cheat, because women are cheating because they're dissatisfied in the marriage, and the number one reason they report dissatisfaction is not enough help in the home.
Sure.
And that is really, that's not something that a lot of, I don't even know how to kind of categorize this, but I just kind of say red pill. They don't talk about, because they talk about a woman's place being in the home and giving her the primary responsibility in the home and doing all these duties and them not helping, and then she needs to give them enthusiastic sex. And yet that's the reason why they're leaving or cheating on their partners is because they're not fulfilling that role. So I think it's something that's important to consider and take a look at.
Yeah. So the second part to what you were saying, the disproving part, was the idea that, like I said before, 83% of the time when a woman cheated, she would fall in love with her affair partner, and 29% of the time it would happen for men, which means that men and women would cheat for different reasons. And like you said, it was a dissatisfaction in the marriage. But the other statistic that actually comes from divorce attorneys, it didn't come from Dr. Buss, was the concept that it was 70 to 80% of divorces are initiated by women, right? So this goes to what your point is. They're dissatisfied for some reason. Now, the reason why that is, if she's saying, I don't get enough help in the house, the question comes then, is he working 50 hours, 60, 70 hours a week, providing 100% of the income, and he's tired when he gets home? Can there be a balance where he isn't going to be able to help you in the house? Or is he just some kind of bum?
What they're actually showing is this, that both people are working. See, the dissatisfaction comes because it's not just really a stay-at-home mom kind of situation. Okay. It's a woman actually working. So she's not, so they call it the second shift, actually. It's a psychological term, and I learned that in social psychology many moons ago. And it's talking about women, how they are, because most women are actually working. Most women aren't adhering to this
Sure.
traditional
Yeah.
place. They don't have the opportunity to really do that. Most
Yes.
women don't. So most women are working. So they're not only they're working either maybe a little less or just as much as their male partners, and then they're coming home and they're working some more, and they're fatigued and they're tired and they're stressed. And
Yeah, in
yet
that case, for sure.
So that is why that's happening.
But the other issue is, so 83%, if you were to look at reasons why people get divorced, one of the top 3 reasons is for financial reasons, right? Especially one of a high predictor of divorce is if a woman starts during the marriage, during some point in the marriage, to make more money than her male partner. That is a high likelihood of divorce. And what will happen is about 83%, they surveyed these women who were working, that were married, and they said, "What would you have preferred to be a stay-at-home mom?" And 83% of them said yes. That's 1.5 standard deviations. That is a massive number. So what's happened for a lot of these women is like, that's part of the dissatisfaction. I wish that I had married someone that was able to make enough money so that I could stay at home and be a caretaker for these children, right? That doesn't mean every woman wants that, but 83% of women who are working said they did.
I actually agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think most women would prefer to work less. Let me
Yes.
say that. I think that they are not in positions where they can actually,
Sure.
where they have that luxury. And so what they've had to do is they've had to step in, do more to be a provider for the home. And then they're doing the child rearing, the majority of the household responsibility. And then they're getting, villainized for wanting to leave their partners. The thing is that they're carrying more of a workload, and they're also bearing a financial responsibility. That's an argument that I don't hear that often.
Yeah. So part of the reason why is, in that case, then you're talking about men who are failing. Right.
I'm talking about an argument that I hear in the manosphere.
Sure.
That is being it's being misrepresented by women.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I just I'm not a lobbyist for the manosphere. I totally understand what you're saying.
I know. I'm not saying that you are,
Yeah.
but you're here.
For sure.
And it's something that I see get circled around.
Let's put the needles in Michael. Let's do it.
So I thought I'd talk about it.
You can't. So I'll play devil's advocate. From the manosphere thing, you're correct. So what'll happen is, hold on, Lana, if you want to turn these microphones off real quick, because you can hear the fan. See those 2 microphones in front of me? They're on, and that's why we can hear the fans, because these 2 are on. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Got it. That's perfect. So going back to what you're saying, when it comes to these men who are not, you were saying before, there seems to be this proclivity, especially for men who don't have a lot of experience with women or have a bad experience with women, to blame women for everything.
Yeah.
So what'll happen is there is a problem. There's a mismatch, and the mismatch tends to be the woman's fault in their eyes. I totally agree with you. And by the way, Rolo does too. Like, you can't keep saying that it's always the woman's fault for all of these situations, because there's no way evolutionarily we could come up as a species where one person is like one. The reason why men and women are always going to be in this battle of push and pull is because if one series dominated the other one, then you wouldn't have a population. You have to have an ability to
balance.
There has to be, at some point, you have to find some level of equilibrium. What's happened, though, is because we got further and further away from a survival scenario, the equilibrium equals more women working. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because there was a point at which, like, when we're in an agrarian society, like the 1850s, there's things men have to do. There's just, because they're bigger and stronger, because they have to be able to provision and protect the tribe. There's things men had to do and women had to do because we were living hand to mouth. Today, because you can own a Glock and you can live in a high rise, right? And you can make $300,000 a year as a single woman.
Sure.
You may want, and you not needing these men causes there to be this imbalance where 68% of college graduates are female now. And so you have a bunch of men who are less educated, who are just not, so their families don't want them. They're not wanted by the opposite sex. They're not being educated. They're just not finding a place in the workforce either. And so you have these men who are like frustrated and don't know where to go and don't know who to blame. And so when you end up in that situation, you end up with all these women who are like, they don't need men, but then you go look at the cohort of these women over the age of 40 and they're deeply unhappy because they've been told don't have children, or divorce is a victory, or eat, pray, love.
I don't think that's what's happening, Michael. I don't. Like, I hear that being preached on the manosphere. That's not actually
No, forget manosphere. Cardi B. Like, just watch television.
Okay, that is not, you can't
watch
take,
the Barbie movie.
But you can't, I don't think I can stomach it.
But the Barbie movie is the Barbie movie is the number one movie in America.
You can't take those kinds of things. Okay, just because it's the number one movie doesn't mean that it's reflective of the female gender.
No, it's reflective of what is being preached to the female gender.
Fair enough. Okay, that is fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think